everybody, and welcome back to my channel, and welcome to the part 2 of our Halloween series. In the next 2 videos I will be dressed up as a doll. I am the doll from Chitty Chitty Bang Bang, so when Truly Scrumptious dresses up for that little music box number, that was what inspired this whole look. So this week we are going to be baking some delicious cupcakes. They are pumpkin spice cupcakes with a cinnamon cream cheese frosting. Absolutely delicious. So let's go ahead and get into the recipe and how I made it. So the first thing you're going to want to do is get out a medium-sized bowl, and in there we are going to mix together all of our dry ingredients. So I started out with 2 cups of almond flour. I have a cup of monk fruit sweetener, which again I grinded up in our coffee grinder. I always do that, it just helps with the texture. I put 1/4 cup of the coconut flour and 2 tablespoons of arrowroot flour. And then for the rising agents, I have a teaspoon of baking powder and a 1/2 teaspoon of baking soda. Then for the spices, I did 2 teaspoons of the pumpkin pie and 2 teaspoons of cinnamon. I wanted to put a lot of spice in these cupcakes, but I didn't want too much of the pumpkin pie spice because I wanted a little bit more of that cinnamon to be a little stronger there. So that's why I did that. And then I forgot to put this in the clip, but I put a pinch of salt in the cupcakes. I just totally forgot. So at the end I mixed it in, but I did that off camera. And with the frosting, spoiler alert, I forgot it there too. So good job, Colette, good job. Okay, so now that we have all of our dry ingredients all mixed together in that bowl, we're gonna set it off to the side and work on mixing our wet ingredients together. In our larger bowl, we are going to start out with a cup of pumpkin puree, a 1/3 cup of coconut milk, and then I put in 1/4 cup plus 2 tablespoons of the melted coconut oil. I also added 1/2 tablespoon of vanilla because vanilla is always delicious, it's always a must. And then I cracked in 4 eggs. And you just want to mix that together again until combined. And then now we are going to take back our dry ingredients that we had on the side and slowly incorporate that back in, mixing very well. I ended up doing about 3 rounds of that, of just adding and then stirring. Make sure you're scraping the bottom really well. We just don't want any flour clumps in there. That's why we're not just dumping it all in at once. And then as you can see there, after I've mixed up the batter, it's pretty thick. It's not like runny. Usually with healthier baking, I find the batters are gonna be more thick in consistency. So now that our batter is all ready, it's all mixed up, we're going to go ahead and line our cupcake tins. This ended up making 18 cupcakes. Perfect amount, all batter gone after taste testing, of course. You always have to save about a tablespoon for that. So I filled the cupcake liners 3/4 of the way full. They don't rise too much. So I filled it there and popped them in the oven at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And I put them in there for 20 minutes, and for my oven personally, that was the perfect amount of time. Ovens will vary a little bit, so if yours tends to run a little bit more hot, you can always adjust. Just keep an eye on them. You can always start them out for 15 and then check them. But anyway, once I pulled them out of the oven, you can see there I'm sticking the toothpick in there and it should come out clean. And when you feel the top, they feel kind of firm, but a little soft because of that coconut oil. When you bake with those kind of oils, they will get, more firm as it starts to solidify. And then in that clip there, you can see that I'm just sprinkling some cinnamon sugar on top of the cupcakes. I had that left over from last week's video. If you remember, I made way too much for my snickerdoodles. So I thought, why not? It kind of fits with the whole pumpkin spice and the cinnamon frosting. So I just sprinkled some of that on top, and it kind of added a nice touch. If you want, you could put that on before baking, maybe about 5 minutes after, and it might caramelize on the top. That would probably be really good. But you don't have to do that step. I just had extra, so I put that on top there. Okay, and then I wanted you to see the center of my cupcake there. I wanted you to be able to see the crumb on the cupcake and like the texture. So I'm just breaking it open there and showing you it's just so soft and moist. They're kind of like a cross between, I'd say, like a muffin and a cupcake in consistency, but Would you agree with that? The cupcakes, do they kind of taste like a cross between like a muffin and a cupcake? Yeah. Okay. She's the one that ate them, but they were kind of like a cross, I would say, between a muffin and a cupcake, which I don't think is a bad thing.
They're delicious.
You heard it from her here.
The best cupcakes you ever made, honestly.
Over the chocolate ones?
Yeah.
Just pat myself on the back real quick. Okay, let's see. All right, now we can move on to the frosting. But I guess before that, I wanted to use cashew butter for the frosting. You can obviously go to the store and buy cashew butter, but I thought I'd tell you how I make it. It's cheaper, and it always tastes good. So I put a cup of cashews in a Vitamix, and then I melted 3 tablespoons of coconut oil and poured that in there as well, just to blend it all up together. Make sure it is melted, otherwise it won't cream as well. That's important. And then also keep it running till it's completely smooth. You don't want a bunch of chunks because that'll be in the frosting. I mean, unless you want chunky frosting, but later we're gonna pipe, so that'll clog up the tips. As you'll see, that's some foreshadowing right there. But I just blended that up till it was nice and smooth and creamy. And now we are ready for our frosting. Okay, so for this frosting, this footage here, this is the first time I have ever made this frosting before. I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants there, and it ended up turning out really good. So I had got like what I thought would be in the recipe, and it was all pretty much exactly how I kept it. Enough of me rambling. So the first thing that I did was I have my chilled ghee, which is a 1/3 cup. I just had it in the freezer chilling. I added it into the bowl there with a 4-ounce log of the goat cheese, and I started creaming that with a tablespoon of vanilla. We want these very vanilla-y. I always use a ton of vanilla in frosting, otherwise it's just not good. So I creamed that together until it was nice and whipped up. I had measured out a cup of the monk fruit sweetener that I ground up. I wasn't sure if I'd need it all, so I was just kind of slowly spooning it in there, as you can see, just to see how thick it would get in consistency, and I ended up putting in the whole cup, and it was the perfect amount for the frosting. So I added that in, and then again with the cashew butter, it made 1/2 cup. I started by adding 1/2 of that amount in there and mixed it up, and then I decided to put the rest in. So I used a whole 1/2 cup of the cashew butter in the end. And then with the cinnamon there, I didn't use all of it. I ended up adding some more later when my mom told me it did taste too cinnamony. Cannot help me out here. Cinnamony. That's what I was trying to say. That is very hard. It's very I better stop. What I said earlier. So I wanted to add more cinnamon. I wanted to add more cinnamon to the frosting. So I ended up adding a whole teaspoon and a 1/2 teaspoon of the cinnamon. And again, like I said, I forgot the salt in the shot, but just go ahead and put a pinch of salt in there to kind of enhance the flavors and cut the sweetness maybe a little bit there too. Yeah, after that was done, I just kind of scraped down the sides. After you do blend it, it might be a little soft from the oils kind of melting, so just pop it in the fridge and let it kind of chill and get a little bit harder till it's the consistency that you can use to pipe. I did end up, when I took it out, it was very hard, so I put the electric hand mixer in and I spun it around because I was like, that'll help soften it up with the heat it generates. And I did add like a little splash, maybe about 2 tablespoons of coconut milk. You really don't have to because it gets soft. You can if you want, I guess, but it wasn't necessary. It melts at room temperature and then it gets really firm when it's in the fridge. Then I got my piping bag ready. Tip for piping bags, I like to find a tall glass, and after I put the tip in there and screwed on, I'll stick it in the glass, fold the plastic around, and then I'll spoon it in. And that way when you pull it up, the ends there are clean and there's no mess on them. It's just an easy way of doing it. So I started out with a little like star tip there, as you can see when I'm piping, but there were still little tiny bits of like chunks from the cashew butter, and I thought this would probably happen, but I really wanted to use that piping tip for my cupcakes. But every time I've tried that with a paleo or keto frosting I've made, something always gets stuck because it's not always completely smooth. That's just how it is, I guess. So I ended up switching to this other tip that's just a circle with like serrated edges, so it makes those pretty ridges there. And I just kind of piped, as you can see, in a little swirl and pulled it upwards. And I did like how those swirls turned out. I thought it was very pretty. So that's how I did it, and I just frosted all of those little cupcakes. There was like the perfect amount of icing for every cupcake to have that much frosting. And then I wasn't sure if I wanted to dust them with cinnamon at the end for kind of like the presentation of it. So I dusted one with it, and I brought it out to my mom because I still wasn't sure. I liked them both, and she was like, I can't decide. They're both equally cute. So I ended up doing half with cinnamon and half without. And I think they turned out really cute that way. I kind of like having the little mix of both types. So yeah, then our cupcakes are all now done. They're all frosted. I just put them on a cute little Polish pottery plate for the final little picture there. My family absolutely loved these cupcakes, and my mom told me that that was the best frosting I have ever made. So I'm really proud of it because I literally just made it up that day, and now I have it written down so I can use it. I'm really excited to use that for carrot cake cupcakes. I have a recipe for that. Now I can use that frosting for it. I want to make like apple cinnamon cupcakes maybe later on this fall season. And then I can use that frosting on there. So I'm really excited that I have a really delicious, I guess, cream cheese frosting now that I can use for other desserts. So yeah, I hope you guys try these cupcakes out. If so, let me know how they turned out, how you liked them. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. If you are interested in how I got this doll makeup and hair, I will be posting it on my channel next, so keep an eye out on it. Yeah, I'll be posting it then. Thank you guys for watching again, and I will see you guys in next week's